And so now the recording is in progress. So this is again a family of educators. This is I'm Galen Pickett. I teach physics at Cal State University Long Beach over here on the West Coast, and my sister.
And I am Amy Pickett. I am in early childhood education. I teach pre-K 4-year-olds here on the East Coast in Rochester, New York, upstate, of course, way upstate. I don't know. We might even be in another state.
You can get,
Workers might.
you're about as upper state as you can get. There's not too much farther to go.
Well, we're certainly Western New York. We're upstate and west. And then there's the Adirondacks, which I guess is upstate, but I think they consider Poughkeepsie upstate.
Okay, well, I'm about as West Coast as you can get.
Yes, you are.
Just nothing to do with, the kind of rap I listen to. Nothing at all.
Right. You're more East Coast.
Maybe? I don't know.
No. So yeah, today's subject, how timely. We wanted to talk about planning, what you can plan for and what you can't plan for. And you guys missed it because we didn't record it because it was pretty much disgusting, but I was shoveling food in my mouth because I got my planning time taken away today. I had planned to have my planning time and it was taken away. So that's something you can't always plan on, is your planning time. But there
How disappointing.
You can plan for.
Yeah.
And that's where you have to, that's the bang for your buck, is planning and being prepared. Yeah.
So lesson planning is sort of if someone listening to this is an educator at the elementary level, high school level, something in a public school, lesson planning is a huge deal. I mean, I don't know for myself because I do not have the same kind of oversight that you have. So no one looks at my lesson plans. In fact, if you looked at my lesson plans, you would see something that looks hardly like a plan at all. It's just a list of topics and sort of a broad, let's hope we get to here by the end of class today. So tell me what a lesson plan looks like to you.
So my lesson plans in pre-K look a lot different than my lesson plans in first grade. I mean, when I taught them, not when I was in them.
Who knows?
I teach pre-K right now. So pre-K is, so we have a daily schedule, daily routine. And there's certain pieces of the day that are planned out. So there's a large group piece, which is 10 minutes. And that has songs or finger plays. So it's really just a list, like tomorrow we're going to have the mystery box and we're going to sing little acorn nut. I'm a little acorn round, man on the cocoa ground. Everybody steps on me. I would not use it. Okay. So, and then we have 2 small group lessons. And you think about a subject, Play-Doh, and then you think of high, medium, and low, and where your students might fall. And then you're thinking about, is this going to be an ELA focus or a math focus? So you jot down some vocabulary that you want to use depending on the focus, some general, again, broad strokes like you were talking about. And then on top of that, you're meshing in what you know about individual student interests, and you try and bring those interests out. So if I have a student who's super interested in dinosaurs and we're talking about Play-Doh, we'll work that into the little time that I have with him. Because like I said, they're really small little lessons that somebody would recognize, where they see the teacher sort of, putting out the question, or, I wonder what I could make with Play-Doh. And then it's very, it's actually exploratory, and it kind of goes where the students want to take it and you help build on that, but it's really their focus, their lead. And then the other big piece of the day, although there's other pieces outside. I have plans for outside time, a lot of science and language that can happen outside. But the other big piece of the day, which happens twice a day, is work time. So they get to choose where they want to work or play. And the room is set up for play. And then I interact with students, and it's language-based, concept-based, problem solving, self-regulation, social emotional skills that are all sort of embedded in this play that is, again, totally student-led. Mm-hmm. I spend a lot of time setting up the environment to be a learning environment where they have the ability to explore and express themselves. Mm-hmm. So most of it's kind of already laid out. If you just look at the daily lesson plan that I have to do, it doesn't seem like a lot of planning. But as you get to know students, there's a lot of different pieces of the day, or how you're going to solve problems, or how you're going to introduce a new toy, that then it's not necessarily written down because it's more emotional based, but there's a lot more complexity. Whereas in first grade, I know this is very long-winded, but in first grade, I had a lot of sticky notes, and I was always taking notes on where kids were with their skill levels and who I needed to pull in for what skill they were working on. And same thing with writing. They had writing folders. So I would have sticky tabs in the writing folders on a writing piece that they were working on. So I could pick up the folder and kind of remember, oh yeah, this is where we were. And then I would write down notes as I conferenced with them. So it did look a lot different. But it's definitely, you have to be first grading and pre-K, you have to be planned out, you have to be set up. Any lag time is, you're done. You're done. They have a revolt, they run you over, your day's done. So not having that, oh, let's see, what were we going to do today? Oh, that's right. Let's open up our math book to page 100 and then have everybody go, oh, we did this yesterday. They're like, oh, right. Like I've seen teachers do this. Go, oh, right. Yeah, how did we do that again? You tell me, how did we do this page again? You know.
Yeah.
Planned, and they're trying to wing it, which has happened to me before, but I don't recommend.
But it's not the normal course of affairs. And I can tell part of the routine in pre-K. I mean, you cannot sit down with a 4-year-old and say, okay, so we're on the same page. Here's our plan for today. We're going to do this thing for this reason. We're going to do this next thing for this next reason.
Right.
The point of the routine is exactly that, is so that the people you're
so that they know
exactly
they know what's coming.
They can cooperate with the plan.
Yes.
It's not a secret plan. It's not like.
Right. No, I have a daily routine. The cards are this big for each activity. And if you count up everything, we count rest time, we count meals, outside time, work time. And in work time, we have planning time, work time, cleanup, review. So it's about 6 feet long. It's our daily routine. And I use a little paper clip. I say, okay, we finished up lunch. And now what does it say we're doing next under daily routine? We're going outside. Woohoo! So I move the paper clip and we go outside. And they're starting to look at the schedule I've had students today say, what are we doing after this? And look at the schedule. Now they're trying to figure it out and what's going on. And it's hard to keep up with that paperclip. I tell you what, I wish that paperclip could just move on its own. I wish I had a little remote to just be like, and bink.
Now Boston Robotics will be right there with you. There'll be something there in the corner going.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Doing a little dance.
Yes, that's what I'll invent when I'm retired. Or maybe just the outfits for the cute little robot teacher. But anyway, so yes, a big part of the learning environment which is a big part of your planning, because if students don't have the same expectation and don't understand the rituals and routines of the day, of the hour of your classroom, it doesn't matter how well you plan a lesson. If it's chaotic and there's no cohesiveness to your day, not even the lessons, but just to your day, you can have great lessons, but it's not going anywhere.
Right. And what that does so having a plan does not necessarily mean that the plan is going to get executed perfectly every time.
Correct.
So if and to the extent that your students and mine are sort of on board, they know what to expect. They know sort of what the next normal thing might be. They can help when you got to deviate from that plan. So, you know, which is totally opposite from, I think, how many people would imagine that plans are made and how they are, what value they've got. So you would imagine that there's a brittle way to do planning. This is sort of resulted in millions of casualties in World War I, where you got people in a trench and they know that at 12:05, an artillery barrage is going to start near their line. And that barrage is going to move forward at a walking pace. And as long as you stay 30 yards behind the boom, you're fine. But the people back there firing the artillery, they just have a timetable. As long as you can keep up with the barrage, you're fine. But as soon as something goes sideways, as soon as you get pinned down and the barrage moves away, you're in a foxhole. You're in a foxhole with machine gun fire all around, and it's just a disaster.
Yeah.
Planning is not really.
You just described today.
Oh, did I? So you're in a you were in a foxhole, wondering when.
Pretty much. I mean, when you're told, 3 minutes before your day's going to start that you're not getting breaks, not even getting the breaks, but just having to go full 6 hours with no downtime with 4-year-olds at the beginning of the year. Like, that was hard. I was in the foxhole.
So it's, there is, so I'm certainly the plans and the expectations for the curriculum get more detailed in like 5th grade, 6th grade, whatever. Those are, I'm not sure how regimented they are. Probably a lot more than what I'm doing right now. Probably a lot more than what you're doing. What I'm doing, probably resembles a lot more what you're doing. So when I plan a lesson, I'm looking over some notes. I decide what topics are going to meet the sorts of issues that over the last 20 years, I'm pretty sure people in the classroom are going to have.
Mm-hmm.
And I show people an agenda. Hey, everybody, here's what we're talking about today. Here's, some announcements, because everyone needs announcements. Keep you on track with, the 40 different assignments you've got to do this semester. Then you've got a time for questions, and then the things I want to talk about. Now, and that's my routine. That's 75 minutes at a block. That question time, that's free time. You got a question, I'll answer it. Tell me your question. We'll talk about it for as long as until your question is dealt with. And it can be about anything that's in the course, a piece of homework, something that's going on in the lab, something someone's curious about. And that can feel in the beginning of a semester. And generally, I don't get a lot of those questions at the beginning of the semester because, no, you're in charge. I'm not in charge. I don't want to, no, you tell me, I don't have any questions. I don't want you to know that I've got questions.
Right, yes, yeah.
But towards the middle of the semester, I could go in a 75-minute class, 50 minutes. 50 minutes at the beginning of class answering questions that students bring to me. And that looks like ridiculous chaos. Can you imagine what that would feel like? Like, what the hell? What the hell? These questions are coming from left and right. What does this have to do with anything?
Yeah.
The 10 slides I've got underneath that question slide is generally exactly the questions that we're going to be asked. The questions that come that look spontaneous are something that I can't predict the order that they're coming. I can't even predict which ones are coming, but the contingencies I am prepared for. And that's what the planning on my end looks like. In fact, since I've done this so often and these classes and this material is so familiar to me, the only wild card is who's in the room.
Yes. Yes, that's the huge wild card, because let's face it, I mean, it's pre-K. I pretty much got the academic part.
Well, some of us
Like,
don't. So that social emotional stuff is a little difficult for some of us.
Well, it's the social emotional, and the key to the social emotional is I don't know what little emotional beings are coming, and then how they're going to mesh with others. So that's the nervousness that I have the day before school starts, is who's coming to the room, you know, like it's, you're just, and then you have no idea, because you see some names and you have no idea. The names mean nothing to you. They literally look good. Just they're just a bunch of letters on a page. Half of the names I know I'm not pronouncing right in my head, and I just wait till I can hear them 1,000 times. And then at the end of the year, you look at those names and you just are in pre-K, because you've just done so much growth with them, and it's an intense emotional growth. You just are overwhelmed with like all these emotions and memories of like they used to be a row of letters,
So, I mean, a student that you get really invested in over a year, that's 1/5 of that person's life.
Yeah, at that point, yeah.
And a 20-year-old who comes to talk to me and spends 4 years or 5 years studying, it's that same quarter or 25% of their lives. Now, they're becoming individuals. I mean, there's a lot of development that goes on. I have no idea about, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, whatnot.
Yeah.
20-year-olds are becoming adults. They look like adults. They act like adults. But there's a remarkable change that goes on there. And so it's not a one semester thing that I get to interact. It's over their entire degree program.
Yeah.
And it's really
cool.
Yeah. So that is, again, something that is a little in common between the two of us that maybe no one would have expected.
Yeah.
Now, I don't mind taking 50 out of a 75-minute lecture. I mean, that doesn't sound like it can sound to someone who is maybe a 3 R's. Let's get this, stop talking and get the business. It can sound like, the hell are you doing? Why are we paying you what we're paying you?
You're right.
But if someone has a question that they want answered, and it is a part of something I've already prepared, it is much more important that I answer that question first than I do it in the order that I've prepared.
Yes.
So there is some element of flexibility that me being an expert, not just in the material. So I know the material well enough that I can wing it. I can do sort of a jazz improvisation on this. If you want a 50-minute lecture on something in physics, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Do you? No, you don't. No, of course you don't. No. Yeah, no one does. But that is a part of, so even when in your own planning, you've got sort of this controlled chaos, the work time, people get to decide what they want to do, how, whether they're going to work with one set of manipulatives or work over, do some pretend play over in the kitchen or something. When it's an open season and people, can play stump the chump with the professor, like, tossing balls. Okay, I hit the target, splash.
Yeah.
I found a question that he couldn't answer. There's a sense of not just autonomy, but identification that shows up there. That, I am the same.
They're
sort of thing
invested
that you
in
are.
it now. It's become, an investment in their own learning, to think about it in their own way. Because like you were saying, so students at the beginning, not really interested in questions, just give me the answers, So, in the beginning of the year, when I'm somebody's like, I want that can, I want that can. And there's a problem. I come over, I go, what's the problem? I want that can. And I go, oh, this can. And the other student just goes, here. I'm like, no, you don't have to just give it over. Like the student's thinking like, oh, I must have done something wrong. So here you go.
Here's an adult who's solving my problem, telling me what to do.
Exactly. But then once they have that experience of understanding like, oh no, we're going to talk about it and we're going to problem solve, and we're both going to get something out of this exercise, because we don't really solve the problem until both or 3 or 4 kids or sides or whatever have come to an agreement like, yeah, that will solve the problem. So, in January, we're spending 15 minutes trying to solve a problem, coming up with different ideas. Oh, this one doesn't like that idea, but likes this idea. And that is the teaching. No, it doesn't look like ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, but that you can get on an iPad. Like the interaction with other human beings and learning to stand up for yourself and what your needs and wants are, and using words and all of those other things that go into the problem solving with critical thinking and compassion, communicate, all that stuff. So, but at the beginning of the year, they're just like, here you go. I'm like, no, just give it up. That's not what this is. This isn't make the teacher happy, although I like it. That's not what this is.
Well, if it's make the teacher happy, give me that can, both of you, go away.
Right. Make the teacher happy, get picked up on time. That's what makes a teacher happy. Especially on a Friday.
And so there's some things that you just can't plan. So so there's the direct interaction with students in a classroom or through a Zoom room or something nowadays. Office hours is something totally different. That's someone comes in and I have no idea what issue. This might be an issue of, hey, I'm thinking about being a physics major. I'm an engineering major now, but this class seems great. What's my next steps? Or it might be, hey, I need some heavy extensions on all of this work because I can't afford the textbook, and I had to break up with someone at the beginning of the semester, and I'm living in a car now.
Oh, geez.
I mean, anything in between.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that eventually one of the things that you are sort of working on is that individual kid, I mean, by the end of the year, sort of what that kid is coming from and how to help that kid. So there is, and there's still, so I guess what the planning does, the planning gives you 2 things. It allows you to improvise when you have to. Because when someone comes into my office hours, it's up to me to figure out exactly what the question is, because generally people don't know.
Right.
So if you've got a plan, fine. Getting some feedback about how that plan is working with an individual. So it's an individual interaction between me, the expert who's interested in you learning, and you who's interested. Maybe you're interested in learning, maybe you're interested in getting points on a test. I'm willing to let it go either way until you develop your own interests.
Yeah.
So the thing that makes a plan rigid and unworkable is that you don't know what the conditions are. So you don't know how the people that you're dealing with are reacting to your plan. Brendan.
Yes.
Our brother.
Rome is crumbling around you and you're still going ahead with your lesson plan because it's the plan you made.
Yeah.
You're done. What are you doing? What are you? And there have been plenty of times where I have just said, okay, I mean, in my head, I was like, yeah, this is not working. We're going to wrap this up and I'm going to flush this dookie down the toilet because this just didn't work at all.
So our brother
Brandoni.
I know that.
Brandoni.
one of dad's tricks to get someone to smile for a portrait is think of your brother Brendan.
Yeah.
And then everyone
Brendan. Yeah.
So he's not an educator as a profession, but he's coached plenty of sports.
Mhm.
And there's this feedback that happens. I mean, hitting a baseball is something that is just ridiculously hard. It's small, it's coming at you fast, and you've got this unnatural thing. You have to hit a bat with it. But to give a kid the experience of what that feels like to hit a ball, as a coach, he will throw a ball at a kid and see how the kid misses. Throw it again, see how the kid misses the second time. By the third time, Brendan has diagnosed how the kid swings. And from that point on, he's throwing the ball where the bat's gonna be.
Mm-hmm.
So all the kid knows is miss, 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 hit, 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 until that experience of the success is something that the kid expects. And then, I mean, you don't just leave it there. That in major leagues or even competitive baseball is not, okay, I want to make sure that you can, it's not a target practice on the bat. The pitchers, that's not the point of it.
Right, it's that bridge of learning that you need. And students don't need that bridge forever. They just get to the other side of having some success, so they know what success feels like, and they can get comfortable with that. And then they have that perfect practice, and then they don't need that bridge until they move on to the next piece that they can add to it. Yeah.
And then they got this even larger experience of, yeah, here's this thing I couldn't do, but now I can do.
Mm-hmm.
Not because I'm brilliant, although I am, but because someone helped me over that bridge.
Yeah.
So, there's some things I'm going to need help with. There's some things I'm not. There's some things I'm going to have to help other people with.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you've noticed that there are some kids in your class who kind of identify with you as the teacher and sort of try to do caretaking for the other kids.
Yes. So yes, I have students so they recognize me as the teacher, and they want to do everything right as the teacher. And then they also want to do my teaching job and point out all of the wrong that is also happening in the classroom, because they think that that's helpful.
Yeah.
Because they think there's the right and the wrong. And Ms. Pickett said, do this, and somebody else is doing that, and that's wrong. So Ms. Pickett. And so even just learning that, you don't get in trouble in school because you're learning. Mm-hmm. So else just has to learn what you've already learned. So
you can get into trouble if what you're doing. If what you're doing is keeping someone else from learning, we're going to have an issue. But
well, everybody kind of learns.
Yeah.
And you say that out loud, right? Now, in first grade, I had students that were having trouble. It's totally different in pre-K because it's so much everybody can kind of learn from that moment. But in first grade, I had students that should not have been in my room. They definitely needed more support. And so there are specific times where if I'm teaching a general concept or skill, and I have somebody climbing all over their seat and under their desk, we've learned in our learning environment, this student is doing what he needs to do right now, and he's going to be accountable for that later. Everybody's accountable for the same learning. How that happens looks really different. So that student isn't going to be having some free time that everybody else is going to be getting because they got through their work, they did the set of questions or whatever, and now to play some games. Where then now this student, and it's not even really punishment, it's like that's built in time where I can now deal with this student that should have a one-to-one or something that
Ah,
support
so
yet.
so part
So
of
I
your
I
plan,
don't stop the whole show to try and support one student at the cost of everybody else. We go on, and then I support kids that need the extra support after the majority has moved forward. And I don't know that everybody would agree with me on that, but I have had the most success as a classroom with actual reading scores as having the environment that way. And it typically those kids that can't stay in their seat, or they're, you know, whatever preoccupation they have, they get to get that out while I'm teaching the rest of the class. And then I can address their needs in a smaller situation in a different way. So I feel strongly about that the whole class should not suffer because of one student.
yeah.
What
So
happens is the class is moving forward, and that student that needs something is going to get it, but it's going to look different. And, you know, they will probably miss out on something else, but they are going to get what they need.
so you've got, as a part of your planning, you don't assume that everything's going to work swell. You've got, as a
Correct.
part of the planning, this sort of error checking, this sort of okay, it didn't work for this kid, and now I got some time that I have counted on having available to help this kid. Not everyone needs the same help at the same time. It's not always the same kid,
Right.
so it's not, you know, but it
Not
is
always the same like in first grade, not always the same subject, not always the same kid, not always the same time of day. All different pieces that there's the general plan, and it's really the general concept or skill that needs to be mastered. Like when I think specifically of that, I think of reading in first grade.
Yeah.
And in first grade, there's 56 reading skills you need to learn. And that's counting like the short vowel sounds, that's 5, and then the long vowel sounds, and the diagraphs and the blends, like all, you know, that, and that's a lot because you just keep building onto it and building onto it. So there's that skill, and not everybody, you know, it's introduced to the whole group. And again, as I'm doing the introduction or whatever, there might be kids because they're really below that. So then that's when I have my small group with them. And now we're still working on short vowel sounds.
Mm-hmm.
So the group and then the pacing in first grade, we're up to 3-letter blends type thing. So
I do an analog of that as well.
the longer the year gets, the more the plans kind of branch out
because you have
kids of where they are.
Sure. You can't predict at the beginning of the school year who's going to need what in April.
Right.
But you know that not everyone's going to need the same thing. You know that.
You know that for sure.
And that is what you're prepared to deal with.
For sure.
Yeah. So in my context, I mean, I do a version of that in a semester where, you know, if someone needs some help with the concept, they get extra time to work on it. It looks on to someone who's just looking over my shoulder as, why are you grading this thing again? So someone turns in a problem, and okay, I'll give them some critique on it. There's some problem with this. It didn't get the point. I hand it back, and okay, do it again. And then it comes back in, and maybe it's a little farther along, some progress has been made. And that keeps going until either they give up, the semester's over, or they finally defeat the problem, which means that some of these problems I give feedback on 5 and 6 times throughout the semester.
Yeah.
Now, that is probably not the way, I mean, that's not the way any of my homework was ever graded when I was an undergraduate or when I was in high school. It was X or not. One go, that's it. You got it right, you got it wrong, we're moving on.
Yeah.
But so that means that if someone doesn't need a lot of help to get that problem right, they're done in 1 week. If someone needs a lot of help, they get feedback over 5 weeks.
Right.
And I can't tell you at the beginning of the semester who's going to need that. And, sometimes it's not that, someone has some hole in their preparation or something they just don't understand. It can also be, hey, I'm living in a car
Right.
and I don't have, I can't do this work between the jobs I've got, and I need a little extra, I
Yeah.
couldn't make this deadline. Is that
Oh,
okay?
1000% in my classroom. There are emotional episodes that happen, a fire, divorce, moved, living with other caregivers, new sibling. That's always a big one.
Gee, what the hell's that like?
Yeah. 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 So, and somebody that
So
you
people, if you're watching
3-year-old
this,
program.
Amy
and
and I
something
are
happens.
one of 7 siblings. So,
Yes. Yes.
and neither of us are the last one down the pike.
No, I am the coveted middle child. And
Precise. Yes.
not, fringe middle with somebody else. I don't share my middle with anybody. It's mine.
Yeah, that just makes me some generic schlob up there, but that's
Yeah,
okay.
pretty much.
For a while, I was the middle.
Yeah.
For a while, when we had 5.
Yeah.
So when Liam,
Yeah.
so
Well, hey, I was lobbying to stop after me, to tell you the truth. Like, why did you continue? And then I do remember, ironically, crying. This was in Kansas City. I do remember it's bits and pieces, and Dad helps sort of tell the story, but I had my bags packed. Like, I was done. If Brendan was going to be a boy, I was like, I'm out. Bye. I'm done. So Dad comes home and he's like, well, you have a brother. And I'm like, that's it. I'm done.
thanks for letting me know, old man.
Yeah.
I'll let you know how
Yeah.
it turns out.
Yeah. How about a ride to the train station? I'm going to go live with the hobos. I probably said that too. And my little scarf.
Yes, we did have, there is a picture that I've got, one of the surviving pictures of our childhood with us in hobo gear for Halloween. So,
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah. With the cigars too.
the cigars, yes.
Glasses and the mustache. Yeah. Yeah.
Somehow
And then, like,
hobos
the
are
glasses
nearsighted and smoke.
with the big, like, drunk cheeks, right? That's what it was
Yes.
supposed to be. Like the fake cheeks that were all rosy. Like,
Yeah, look just like all of those guys in black who were over at our houses drinking gin.
yeah. Yeah. So yes, so we're siblings, family of educators. But yes, so students definitely have, and you just don't know when that's coming, You can have, there are students that present day one, you're like, whoa, okay, there are definitely some things going on here. And then there's other students that, it's something that happens within the family, within the time that, we're together. I had one student that actually, he was in our 3-year-old program, and his mother was killed in a car accident the June
God.
before I had him in my 4-year-old program. And yeah, it was devastating. And the family, the father, so the father was widowed. He had 2 boys. I had the oldest one now in my 4-year-old program. And when I tell you this student and this family, like, I couldn't work hard enough for them. I had infinite energy for this family. And they truly needed it. And not only did I feel for the father because he lost his wife, but he was he was very honest with me and very open, and was really just struggling with just basic, like, I'm not even sure what I'm doing as a parent at this point.
Yeah.
It was, and the son, he's super bright, but very challenging behaviors, especially towards others in the classroom.
Yeah.
So a lot of time and energy and thought for planning was put into this student. And there were things that I hadn't done in my classroom yet, but based on what he wanted to do, he was the one that asked for a word notebook, because he kept asking for words. And so I would write them down on a piece of paper thinking he wouldn't ever remember them or know how to refer to them. And then the next day he's like, where's that paper? I need to write those words again. And he was writing a story. And I was like, oh. So because I was like, oh, I threw it out. I was cleaning up. So I put down the words again, and then I had a folder. Now everybody else in the classroom knew it's just a folder of John words. You can ask him if you want to use it. Nobody needed it. Nobody wanted it. So nobody felt like they had to have it because they didn't need it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was great. He wanted to look up on Google because he wanted to see what flying fish were about. So he could make he was making a mural. And I was just like, wow, sure. I go, I'm going to have to Google that on my own first, because I want to see what pops up. I don't want, pictures of flying fish. They'll be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Don't look at that. Yeah. But I mean, I would have never just said, okay, we are going to look up on the internet and everybody's going to do a picture of flying fish. That was very specific to a very specific learner. And that took him to the next step. And he knew, yeah, that thing you have over there on your desk, you can get me some information. So I need this information next. I haven't had it since, but
one of the things
that student.
One of the things I think planning is about has nothing to do with what is actually going to go on on any particular day. But it is, if you have done enough planning, then you are aware of issues that you would not have been aware of. And being aware of what you're doing, if you got some plan, you are at least aware of what you are doing when you're talking to people, particularly people that are as vulnerable as 4-year-olds learning to go, master being able to start kindergarten, or young adults who are thinking about being scientists.
Right.
So for instance, if you don't know and you haven't done any planning, and your idea of sort of teaching science is just, I've got 20 pages of lecture notes here. Over the next week, I'm going to copy these down on a board, and you're going to make copies of them too, and then that's it, we're done. But if you've done some planning, then you've got some training too. So there are different styles of questions that you can ask someone to figure out how you need to help them. So, but if you don't know that there's different styles, the sort of default, the easiest question to ask is questions that have sort of like yes, no answers. So questions that stop a conversation dead, as opposed to questions that, and it's the same issue you're trying to get at, but a question that gives someone some validation, but allows the conversation to open up. And if you know that there's a difference there, and you've got a couple of these opening questions planned, when someone asks you a question, it is now your expertise, together with the plan, that reacts to the kid or the adult or whoever it is.
Yeah.
And that can seem, you need to have a significant set of skills to do that. I don't know that recently credentialed teachers without a lot of experience can do that.
Right. No, you definitely have to grow into that. I mean, when I think of myself as an educator from the first year to the 25th year, and even regardless of grade level, the planning and prep that I did when I first started teaching, it was 90% like worthless.
Yeah.
It was work I didn't need to do. It was overdone in one area, not in that, and you just learn through the process. And then after you're, especially in a grade level or with a certain amount of material, because you have experiences of where it has gone,
Right.
you can kind of, you know, when you plan, it's really just being one step ahead of the learner. So you
Sure.
can see, you know, they say this, and then you say, oh, I wonder what will happen. And then something happens and they tell you what's happening. And then you ask them, oh, I see. The water spilled out of the cup. I wonder why that happened. I wonder
And
where
that,
the water went. Or so you, because you kind of know when kids play with water in cups, if they don't have a conceptual concrete, well, if they don't have the concrete understanding yet of small cup, the water is going to fit in the big cup, but the big cup with a full of water, it's going to overflow, and understanding that size. It's the, you know, the water table plan, but it's going to be different for each kid on how that's going to play out. And you've seen that scenario a few times. So you know, and things come up unexpected, like all the time, and that are great. And then you add them in. And it's like, wow, I've learned from you today. And they're like, you're the teacher. No.
don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think planning by itself isn't enough. Experience by itself isn't enough. And the training by itself isn't enough. But I think the sort of place where you and I have both converged is the training and the experience and just the raw being prepared. That all results in kind of a sensitive, like a really sensitive interaction with really vulnerable people that is really effective.
Yeah. Well put. Well spoken. Well said.
That's good enough. That's as good a place as any to say, let's stop here before I take that apart.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I know the very next thing I'm going to say is going to ruin that whole thing.
That's okay.
There's no way there's no way I can ever say that again. That was right. But it was recorded. Right. It's like
I do some of my best bits in my insane mind, and I never remember them again, but they were fantastic. I know it.
yes. Okay. Well, until next time, then I'm going to stop this recording.
Okay.